Hello and good afternoon. So today's show is all about Fife homeowners and how they have managed to pocket £4,238 a year in profit since 2005. But before we get into the nitty-gritty and really look at the facts and figures, let's QVT.
This is going to be an interesting one.
It's absolutely, and we're going to have to go back in time a wee bit because we're actually relating all the way back, obviously, till 2005. And can you believe it, actually, while we're sitting doing this, that we are halfway through 2025? Like, that is crazy. Not long, and I'm sure people start talking Halloween and Christmas and all that before we know it. Because we are halfway through, but this is going to give us a great insight because it's certain that the Fife housing market has been more restrained than kind of the post-pandemic 24 months of the summer from say 2020 through to July and August of 2022, and we believe that that's the steady as she goes outlook will continue into the rest of 2025 and beyond. And we do these shows regularly. We do the Five Property Market Updates live every Tuesday, and we say about how home ownership is a medium to long-term investment. So it feels it's always important to measure what has happened to Fife house prices over those medium to long terms, and that's why we are going back, as far as 2005.
I think that's really important though, because in regards to people moving, generally the average person moves every 7 years.
Mhm.
So you
Yep.
may have only moved twice and not really understood where the market is from when you last moved. So it's a good way of understanding that, Sophie, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I mean, we go out to a lot of properties as well, and they've not moved in, since 1919, whenever. Like they just haven't. They've been there 24, 25 years. They've not moved. So this does give you a great insight because actually, since the summer of 2005, the average Fife homeowner has seen their property values rise by an average of 104%, and that's Fife alone. 104%. That is crazy. And this is significant as house prices are a national kind of fascination, and subconsciously they're tied into that perceived health of the UK economy. And especially obviously even what's just been happening since the pandemic and all the different changes and everything in the scaremongering. It is obviously, this is an important topic because most of that 104% gain has come from the overall growth in all Fife property values, while some of it will have come about by modernising or extending or perhaps developing, because more and more people did that, especially coming out of the pandemic. They were staying put and just actually making more space at their existing home. But we're actually going to look at analysing the different property types. So, Perrie, what does that look like? And are you going to talk us through the profit?
Yeah, so what I'll do is I'll talk about Fife as a whole and all property types, and then we'll break it down into property specific, so apartments, terraced, townhouses, semi-detached, etc., to give you an idea of what your particular property may well look like in today's market. So if we look at overall averages for all homes in Fife, the average price paid for a home in Fife in 2005 was £83,844. But now we're into 2025, it has risen to £168,600. That's more than doubled, which is what you'd expect because we're saying on average 104%. So you would anticipate that you're going to fall into that bucket. This is a total profit of 84,756. That's massive. So when you then split that down to the timeline that passed over those years that we're speaking about, so from 2005 to 2025, when you break that down and divide that £84,700 profit, it equates to the £4,238 profit per year, each year to today's point from that marker. So that's a super 5.2% growth per year over a 20-year period each year. That's huge, isn't it? So if you were an investor and you're one of those people that Sophie was speaking about earlier who hasn't moved in 20 years, you're in a good position, aren't you?
Absolutely. Yes.
Depending on what type of house you have. So we're going to cover that just now. So that's the overall properties throughout Fife. So we're going to break that down. So we'll look at apartments as a starting point, for instance. So the average Fife apartment in 2005, an individual paid then £60,335. Jump forward to 2025, that has risen to £104,986. Still a really healthy profit of £44,500. So again, if we do the same equation and we break that down over the 20 years period, that's a 3.8% increase year on year and a £2,233 increase year on year. Again, a really good investment if you've bought an apartment back in, if especially say you're a landlord as well, your portfolio has just doubled in size in regards to its value potentially, which is huge because landlords who have a portfolio generally are in it for the long term. Property investment is not something you do on a short term basis, is it? So if you're kind of starting out a portfolio, generally in that time, back in 2005, it was apartments that people were buying because they were just testing the water to see what the return was going to be. But if you've hung on to those properties, what an investment that's been, hasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. The fact that your property value's gone up by that much, but also you've been getting a monthly income as well via your tenant, and like it's a win-win situation. Absolutely.
100%. So that's what your apartments are looking like. If we then look at your terrace or your townhouses, the average price paid for a townhouse or a terrace back in 2005 was just over £70,000. Now, in 2025, it has risen to £150,922, so just short of £151,000. That's a fantastic investment. And the profit there is over £80,000, more than you actually put out in the first place if you still have one of those properties. So that's a really good return on your money. What that equates to in regards to percentage year on year is 5.7%. So actually higher than the overall Fife average at 5.2, and also £4,016 profit per year. So while some monetary element year on year overall is slightly less, the percentage improvement is more. So again, a fantastic investment if you've got a terrace or townhouse. And again, actually, if you look at those prices, we're just talking averages. A lot of the townhouses we have are in these snooks, Sophie, aren't they? So those people who bought them at that price point, the average price there is not going to be 151. Bear in mind, we're talking about averages. So, if you did have the fortune to purchase something at £70,000 back in 2005, you're probably sitting at the 350 plus mark in today's market, which is a fantastic place to be, isn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely. And as you say, this is the averages as well. Like this is just based on average. If you've then perhaps extended the property and added value even that way and increased the floor area, then that's also going to add to your value as well. So it's absolutely
really great numbers. And then we go to the popular one, which is the semi-detached property, because they're generally your family homes. You get a lot of area outside as well. So these are really very popular properties. So the average semi-detached property that was purchased in 2005 was priced at 92,500. In 2025, that has risen to just short of 192,000. That is a fantastic investment and profit of just short of £100,000. So more than double your investment. So that's where your kind of 104% is probably coming into play. So you're not far away from that. So that gives you an average profit each year of £4,967. That's just shy of £5,000 per year since you purchased that property in 2005, if you're fortunate enough still to own that property, which gives you an annual growth year on year of 5.4%. So again, higher than the average. So fantastic return if you've managed to buy a semi-detached and you're still in that property just now. That's a great investment. Then we're going to jump to your detached homes. So your detached home, the average price for a detached home, you're always going to expect that to be more expensive because it's the biggest footprint. So in 2005, the average detached property was 165,630. Jump fast forward to 2025, and that's sitting at 327,258. Again, just almost double, £162,000 profit. So that's equating actually year on year when you look at the number of £8,081 profit per year, each year for 20 years, if you're still in that type of property just now. Again, what an investment. So
Mhm.
whilst the percentage is slightly less than the average, the profit numbers, that's a fantastic situation to be in. And we've got a little graph as well, Sophie, where we're going to kind of demonstrate that, aren't we?
Yes. How many people do you think after I've watched this show go, "Oh, I'm gonna get my house valued. What? How much am I sitting on?" Because when you hear that, when you hear, 8,000 profit per year, that's incredible. So I
It
wonder
is.
how many people will now be straight on the phone. "Can I get my house valued, please?" Absolutely. Mhm.
It definitely might motivate somebody, mightn't it?
Absolutely. So yeah, you mentioned that there is this graph, and absolutely, it maybe is a bit easier to see like a visual representation because obviously that was a lot of numbers. So this gives you a great insight, and you can actually see the real difference. So you can see along the left-hand side, you've got your different property types that we've just ran through, and then along the bottom is the different price ranges, and then you can see the kind of pink bars are for the average price paid in 2025. So that's current, and then the kind of yellowy orangey bar was 2005. So that gives you a great representation, and especially when you see that detached one, you can see it's
Mm-hmm.
basically doubled in length, which you can also see it doubled in value. So that gives
Yeah,
you a great visual and really puts it into perspective just how much profit and the values have gone up.
absolutely.
Um,
And if you look down the side here where my marker is at the moment, what you're seeing there is the top one is your overall averages.
mhm.
2 is your apartments, then you're going third into your terrace, then into your semi, and then into your detached. Don't be concerned if you can't see this actually, because the link to this show is in the post. So if you
Mhm.
want to kind of do a little bit of deep diving into yourself, because you're thinking, oh, that's quite exciting and that does impact me and it's made a difference to my thinking, you can go in and read and see this for yourselves as well. So it'll give you a really good insight.
Absolutely. And obviously that's been great to visualize, but there is a key thing that we can't forget about and we do need to discuss, and that there has been the inflation, which is 77%. So over those 20 years, there has been a 77% inflation, which actually eats into the real value, or we'll say the true spending power of that profit. So
Mm-hmm.
actually, if we consider inflation since 2005, the true kind of spending power of that profit has been lower. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what we're going to get into next. So that's about the overall average for all homes in Fife. So the actual total real profit, i.e., after inflation has been deducted, the average Fife home is 47,831 for the last 30 years. So actually, this then equates to 2,392 real profit per year, which is still profit. We're going to take it absolutely, but that's a bit of a better visualization. Then we'll jump to the next type, which is apartments. So the total real profit is 25,198 for the last 20 years. And that actually equates to 1,260 as your real profit with inflation deducted. Then we jump again to your terrace/townhouses. And then after inflation has been deducted, it's 45,324 for the last 20 years. And this equates to 2,266 real profit. So but that's just in line with your overall average. And then you go to your semi-detached, which obviously, as Perry's touched on, that is your popular one. Now the real profit from that is 56,065 for the last 20 years, which actually equates to 2,803. And as I say, that's still real profit. It's still a
Mm-hmm.
profit. It's still your property value going up, but it is also more realistic. But still, it's over obviously the average for Fife. Then your detached homes, the real profit for a detached home is 91,212 for the last years, which actually isn't that big of a difference in terms of the average kind of price, considering it was just shy of like 98 with everything included. But this actually equates to 4,561, which is your real profit when you think before we calculated that it was just over 8,000. Actually, when we take away inflation, it actually brings it back down to 4,561. Therefore, that means the profit for an average Fife home over the last 2 decades, adjusted for inflation, stands at 2,392 per year, rather than your 4,238. So
Mhm.
that gives you a more realistic number.
Still a great number though, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's gone up. Better that than gone down. So there we
True.
go. Yes. So then what we also wanted to show you is despite the 2008-9 credit crunch property market crash, which saw, Fife property values plummet by 16 to 19% over 18 months, Fife homeowners have still fared better over the long term rather than those that are obviously renting. So looking ahead, Perrie, what does that mean?
I mean, we always get asked, what is the future outcome and predictabilities of what the Fife property market is going to do. And the main influence on maintaining house prices really is medium to long term. It depends on the construction of new homes as well, because that will drive the prices, because new homes are more expensive. But again, if you get a vast amount coming in your area, then your resale properties potentially can impact that. So new homes is one thing that impacts it. Employment, of course, impacts it, because you're only going to buy a property if you've got that affordability. So that's a huge factor into it as well. And actually, interest rates are a huge factor in what we're doing. We've seen that even in the last 2 years, haven't we, Sophie? Interest rates have gone from 1.5%, and today they're currently sitting at 4.25. So there is a hope that that will come down to 4% come the 7th of August when the Bank of England meet. But let's see what happens there. And doesn't help when inflation keeps rising, because inflation at the moment is 3.6%. And that's really being impacted by food, transport, hospitality. So they're the everyday things that people need. So if the everyday things keep inflating in price, it means, instead of something costing you £10, it's now costing you £13.60, multiplied by maybe 5 things in each week. Then that starts to impact what people can afford. So that, with interest rates, will really determine what people can afford to do and whether they can afford to move or not. So those are the things that really do impact it. And what that then does is actually affect the supply and demand. So, some people might need to sell because those impacts are negative for them in regards to the monetary position. But then your buyers are not there either, because they're thinking, well, hang on a second, I need the mortgage rates to come down if I'm having to pay for my mortgage. So there's a lot of impacts to it. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens come the 7th of August, because I think that'll have a big play in what happens next in regards to values and people moving and the choices that people will make.
Absolutely.
Although, having said that, we have to get the official figures, of course, for 2024. They're independently sourced, and they will indicate what new households are expected to spend. And it's estimated that the average will increase to about 217,000. When I did the UK house price index show the other day, it was averaging at the moment 198,000 per property. But when do all the seasonally adjusted and the final numbers come in, they think it will jump to over the 200,000 mark. So be interested to see if that actually happens. But bear in mind that the annual need for properties and people moving is still in Scotland to have 3,000 homes move. So that's a big factor.
Yep, absolutely.
So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. Demand is there, but the factors can be increased or decreased depending on, as we say, the expectancy as well of corroboration with governments, what they do in regards to supply. Will they build new houses? Affordable homes is a massive thing for people at the moment. When your average prices are those prices, will people be able to move? There's a lot in the press at the moment. We see it about immigration and expectancy. So what is the population going to be like, and will that be impacted? Because again, if there's no homes, that makes things really quite tricky for everyone, because no one's then moving where they want to move, or supply and demand is there, and then that drives the prices up as well. So it's really something that we're going to be having a look at. But the good thing is, it can impact positively, negatively, and put you in a strong position. And if you're one of these people that are sitting in a home at that point, then actually you're in a really strong position anyway, aren't you? But absolutely, it's pretty much a status quo at the moment, and 2025 looks like it's going to be stable all the way through to the end of the year. I don't think we're going to see huge fluctuations in interest rates. We may see a slight drop, but the anticipation is that they'll be down to about 4 to maybe 3.5% by the end of the year. Nowhere near where it was obviously 2 years ago when it was sitting at 1.5, but actually it is still downward, rather than 2 years ago you were getting an average mortgage rate at 6.95%. So that they're big differences. Those percentages sound small, but when you're basing that on £100,000, say, then actually that's a big affordability for people, isn't it? So it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. So that's where you are as far as homeowners, if you're a private person looking to move. But what does that all look like for landlords, Sophie, if they're thinking of maybe increasing their portfolio or decreasing it? How is it going to impact them?
Yeah, so even though the quantity of landlords selling up their rental portfolios has increased in the last couple of years, just I think coming out of the pandemic when there was the no eviction ban, and obviously some landlords obviously didn't have the best experience. So when that was lifted, they just was like, okay, now's the time to offload. All the different changes that came into play. There was obviously an increase in properties coming to market from landlords, and the number of landlords purchasing buy-to-let properties is lower than in the last couple of decades. There is still, however, margin like net growth in the size of the private rented sector each year. This is all notwithstanding landlords facing higher taxes, though. And the fact is, many Fife landlords continue to be keen on expanding their rental portfolios, thinking of that medium to long term, especially if you look back, if they have perhaps had one for the last 20 years and they can see the return that they've had from that. Again, they're thinking, let's double that again. So many of the 20 and 30 somethings of Fife view renting as a choice that offers flexibility and perhaps options that home ownerships do not provide, whether they don't have, maybe they can't get for perhaps a mortgage because they don't have enough pay slips, or they've maybe not been, they maybe went away traveling and come back and they've not been in the UK long enough, or they don't have the deposit there to obviously be able to get their foot on the ladder. So it does offer that flexibility and it gives them an option. This does mean then that demand for rentals will keep rising, which for a landlord, you then obviously have capital appreciation, rising rents because you can charge a premium because it's sought after. However, Fife buy-to-let landlords must accept more considerate strategies to maintain profitable returns for their investment. And if you are a buy-to-let landlord, the issue for you is how to ensure this growth continues. Because at the end of the day, it's a numbers game, and that's why obviously you entered into this. So you need to obviously make sure that it continues to grow. Now we can obviously talk you through this, but if it is something that you want to discuss in greater detail, then obviously you can reach out. We do have a full lettings team, and we do have Richard Cook, the lettings director, that'd be more than happy to talk with you and speak with you and keep you right. But this is obviously just a little snapshot, if you like. But up until 2017, generating profits from buy-to-let property investments was like falling off a log, we'll say. Since then, with change in this legislation, as I've mentioned, taxation, the balance of power, achieving similar returns will be more effortful. And over the last 8 years, we've observed the evolution of agents from mere rent collectors to tactical rental portfolio managers. Along with a select number of agents in Fife, we do have a skillful and quite a strategic portfolio that is comprehensive, and there's a team that can manage that and work with you. And this service offers a structured overview of your investment goals across short, medium, and long-term horizons, which allows you to then focus on your expected returns, your yield, your capital growth. And as I say, if you want to speak with the lettings director or the lettings agent, then we're more than happy, obviously, to speak with you, and you can certainly reach out to them. But that is kind of a snapshot for landlords and what that looks like for them. Any last thoughts, Perrie, at all?
I think for me, what's really positive is that the trend is that everything is still going forward. There is no regression as such, which I think is a really great thing, considering we had that crash in the middle as well, which did impact a lot of people and made them make different choices. But the fact that you've now got a trend where things are continuing to rise, it's a great position to be in. And actually, it's a really good time to invest as well in Fife, I think, because interest rates are potentially coming down. The property values are still going up. It is steady. We're still getting 83% completions on properties as well, where they're completing through to conclude on sale. So that's very strong when the average across the whole of the UK sits at around about 55%. So Fife is performing strongly still in the property market, and it's a very settled, steady market at the moment. All I would say again is if you're a landlord that has a portfolio, get some real good advice. If you're someone that's considering moving, again, seek some really good advice. But read the article as well, because it'll give you some really good insights.
Absolutely. Well, there we go. That's it for another week, and I'm sure we'll see you on Saturday actually, and it's actually a great topic for Saturday, so tune into that one, especially if you've maybe got kids as well. So look out for us on Saturday morning, but enjoy the rest of your day and take care.
Thank you. Take care all.
Bye for now.